Hey fifth graders, so we're back with another lesson. This is lesson 4 and we are going to take a look at figurative language today. And of course we're going to start off our lesson with our shout outs. So first shout out goes to from Emery. Emily, you've been doing a really good job completing assignments and just being sure to complete them to like your best ability. Angel from Morehouse, you're doing a phenomenal job. You've submitted almost every assignment, which I'm really, really proud of. Melanie, I see growth in the work that you're submitting. And Baltimore, you have such good summaries. It's really impressive how much work you're putting in to make sure that you get all the key details in there. So all of y'all get a shout out. Continue your hard work, and we see you. We cannot wait to see you physically sometime in the future. Alright, so our learning target for today, our goal is to be able to explain the meaning of similes, metaphors, and personification. So figuring out the meaning of different figurative language and literary text helps us understand the text and enjoy it a little bit better. So sometimes authors use fancy language or interesting ways to describe things, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. So what is the difference between literal and figurative language, right? Literal is what the author literally says, so when the author actually means what they wrote. So this could really mean anything, but like when they say something exactly and they mean that exact thing, that's when it's literal. Figurative is when the author uses words in a creative way and they're not meaning exactly what they say. So there's some ways that authors try to be creative and try to describe things, and so today we're going to be taking a look at figurative language and specifically what types of figurative language authors use often are similes, metaphors, and personification. So we're going to take a look at those three, and the reason why authors use these is to produce a certain mood or feeling in their writing. Okay, so I'm going to walk y'all through each one and what they mean and some examples, and then we'll talk about how we apply this to readings. So first and foremost, we have similes. So similes are when they use the words like or as to compare two things that are not alike. So for instance, after being left out all night, the pizza was as cold as ice. So pizza and ice aren't really very similar things, but the way that the author is describing this is just saying that the pizza is cold like ice, right? Or as cold as ice. He eats like a pig. Obviously, he's not a pig, but he eats like a pig, right? So that means he's probably eating in a messy way, or maybe he's eating a lot, right? So that's what a simile is. It's when the author uses the words like or as to compare two things that are not alike. So make sure that if you're thinking that it's a simile, make sure that the words like or as are in the sentence. Next, we have metaphors. Metaphors are very similar to similes. The only thing is they compare two things that are not alike without using the words like or as. So for instance, her heart is gold. That means she probably just has a really good heart, right? Her heart is gold, right? He is a pig. Obviously, he's probably not a pig. Whoever it is, the human probably is not a pig. But they're using this to explain how he eats or maybe the way that he acts, right? So they're trying to describe something in a more descriptive way by just comparing them to that thing. Next, we have personification. So personification gives human qualities to non-living things. For instance, lightning danced across the sky. This probably means that the lightning was moving around the sky and there's just lightning, right? So the dance part just kind of makes us visualize what the lightning looked like in the sky, right? The moon played hide and seek with the clouds. That means that the moon was probably moving in a way that it was like at certain points you could see the moon, and then at other points the clouds were hiding it, right? So that is just a way to describe non-human things or non-living things by using human qualities, right? Lightning doesn't dance, moons don't play. So these are just ways that authors sort of get creative with the way that they describe things. Okay, so you're due now for today. I want you to read this poem, The Tree Bats, and I want you to fill in the rest of this chart that's on page 267. So over here, you're going to take 5 minutes to basically find the figurative language. Some of them are already identified for you, and then figure out what type of figurative language it is. So the tree bats sway like fruit with wings is a simile because there's a like and then it says what it's comparing, and then try to explain what it means. This is not like a quiz, it's just sort of to get you warmed up. So go ahead and do that. You're going to take 5 minutes to do that. Don't take longer than 5 minutes, but we're going to talk about it after we come back from our pause. Okay, so here's what the chart should look like. The explanations of what they mean is really important because you need to be able to understand why the author was saying it in that way, right? So here, prisoners of light throughout the day. This is personification because bats obviously aren't prisoners, but it's explaining them like they are prisoners, and the light is the jailer, right? Prisoners of light, so the light is keeping them jailed up, right? So it's basically just saying that bats are only coming out at night when there is no light. And then there's this metaphor, the bat's flight is like a whirlwind, so a dark whirlwind of sudden flight. The bats take off quickly and fly away, right? So this one was a little bit more complicated. We're going to walk through a simpler example together, and then you guys are going to work on your own. Okay, so we're going to start with the text called Wildlife Worries. I'm going to walk y'all through it. We're not really going to focus on the previewing, closely reading, or jotting the main idea because that's not really our focus for today. Remember that we're working on figurative language. So I'm going to sort of, not rush, but sort of just speed through these part a little bit just because we're not really focused on those skills today. So first we're going to preview the text, right? So we're going to take a look at the title and the text features and just sort of get a gauge of what this text is going to be about. So first and foremost, I'm noticing that it says Wildlife Worries. At the top, the genre says realistic fiction. So I think that this text is fiction, but it's something that could be real, right? I think the subject is going to have to do with some sort of animals or wildlife. So my genre is fiction and my subject is wildlife. Now I'm going to closely read the text. I want you to pause and closely read the text on your own and thinking about where are the characters, what are they doing, and what happens. Okay, now that we've closely read the text, we're going to think about these questions. Where are the characters and what are they doing? So there is a narrator. We don't really know her name, but there's a narrator and they are hiking with their aunt and uncle and their mom, and they are looking for animals, and she finds a moose, right? And she thinks that the moose is kind of harmless, and turns out that Aunt Cheryl tells her about how they are actually pretty dangerous, right? So my main idea is the characters are hiking on a trail in the woods and they see a moose. The narrator assumed it's not dangerous, but Aunt Cheryl explains that a moose is one of the most dangerous wild animals in North America. Again, we're not really focusing on main idea, and we worked on this skill before, so I hope that your main idea looks something like this. Alright, so now we're going to reread, and this is what you might be looking like. Oh, Miss Aldic, are we going to reread? Well, good readers reread, and also we're focusing on figurative language, and I feel like when we first read a text, we're just sort of figuring out what happens according to the literal meaning, right? So what the author literally just said. But now I'm going to reread to find the figurative language and figure out what the author was trying to say through those different figurative language techniques, okay? So the first one that I noticed was here it says, an amazing waterfall near the park entrance swept away my fears at first. So the narrator was kind of scared, right? It says I was terrified of dangerous animals. The narrator was kind of scared of animals, but then they said that the waterfall swept away my fears at first. So they just sort of made her fears go away. Next, they hiked a trail that snaked up river through a gold mine of maple, birch, pine, and spruce. Through a gold mine of birch, pine, and spruce. So here, obviously it wasn't actually a gold mine, like she wasn't walking through a gold mine. Rather, she was just sort of focusing on how the trail had so many beautiful things. So they compared it to a gold mine because there were so many different beautiful things, right? That's sort of, I'm just basically walking through what I'm reading, what figurative language it is. So here it's a metaphor because it's saying that it is a gold mine. Not that it is like a gold mine, or not that it is being personified into a gold mine. It's not saying human qualities. Rather, it's telling me what the trail is like. So it's comparing the trail to a gold mine because of how it has so many different things that are very beautiful. Great. As we walked on, though, I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread. So are they actually sinking into a black bog of dread? No. But they're comparing, it's a metaphor again, comparing the way that they're feeling to a black bog of dread. So a black bog, I'm not sure what a bog is, but I'm assuming it's heavy and it's like weighing her down, making her feel sort of stuck or like weighted down. So not good, right? Black kind of makes you feel, and dread makes you feel like down. It's bad, right? Sad. And just then, in a shallow, glassy bend of the river up ahead, I saw an animal I wanted to see. In a shallow, glassy bend of river. Was it a glass river? No. But again, a metaphor showing how beautiful and clear the river was. I saw an animal I wanted to see. I was going to feed it. Da, da, da. Aunt Cheryl grabbed my shoulder with an iron hand. Does she have an iron hand? No. But her hand probably felt really heavy, and it made her stop, right? So that's what it's another metaphor explaining that Aunt Cheryl had a heavy hand that sort of made the narrator stop. Aunt Cheryl explained to me that a bull moose topped the list as one of the most dangerous wild animals in North America. That it was likely for a human to be hurt by a moose in these parts than a wolf or bear. It felt strange, after all my misplaced fears, to discover that this beautiful animal that looked as tame as a cow back home had to be treated with caution. Alright, so when we see the word like or as, we need to make sure we're focusing on that a little bit more because it's probably a simile. So, it felt strange, after all my misplaced fears, to discover that this beautiful animal that looked as tame as a cow back home. The animal that she's referring to is a moose, right? So, the moose looked as tame as a cow back home. This phrase kind of tends to make me think that a cow back home, she's probably from somewhere where there's cows, and tame just makes it think like, okay, cows are kind of calm and a little bit more relaxed. The animal, the moose, looks tame or calm. That's what the author is trying to say. Yeah, and that's all I sort of find from this text. Here are some ones that I pointed out. There's probably more. Sometimes they're hidden and you don't even notice because you're used to reading texts, and so there might be more figurative language in here. I'm sure I missed a few, but we're going to keep it pushing. We're going to answer the questions now, the multiple choice questions. So, number 1, read the sentence from the story. Next, we hiked a trail that snaked upriver through a gold mine of maple, birch, pine, and spruce. What does a comparison of maple, birch, pine, and spruce to a gold mine suggest? Okay, so I'm going to cover up my answers right now. Obviously, we can't do that, but I'm going to cross this out so I'm not looking at my answers, just like we would with the plan of attack. So I'm going to analyze this question. So we already actually looked at this sentence and sort of broke it down, but I'm going to try to think about what the gold mine suggests. When I looked at this, it told me that there are multiple things, different things, right? There's maple, birch, pine, and spruce. And it's comparing the trail to that, right? It's comparing the trail to a gold mine. A gold mine is usually, gold is valuable, right? Gold is valuable. It's rich, right? And so the trail is being compared to a gold mine because it has a lot of different things, natural things that are valuable or that seem to look nice for the author. So we're going to now take a look at these answer choices and compare it to what I just said. Okay, so the park is a valuable natural resource. This matches my answer choice, but of course I'm going to mark it as a magic maybe. The park is near a gold mine in which trees grow. So we know it's not literal because it's not saying that there is a gold mine because maple, birch, pine, and spruce aren't in a gold mine. The trees make the trail seem dark, like being in a mine. This could be an option, but that's not really what the author is saying because it doesn't really mention anything about darkness. So I'm going to cross this one out. The park has several kinds of trees with yellow leaves. Maybe, but I'm not really sure that's what the author is trying to say. So my answer choice is A. Read the sentence from the text, then answer the question that follows. As we walked on, though I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread, what feeling is the author trying to create by using the metaphor black bog of dread? Select 2 options. Okay, so first I need to figure out what kind of feeling I think the author is trying to tell me. A black bog of dread sounds like sadness or fear or being scared, and it also sounds like being stuck or something heavy, right? So we're going to go and check see if the answer choices match. A sense of adventure. No. B, a feeling of fear. Yeah, that could work. A sense of happiness. C, no. A sense of being stuck. Maybe. A feeling of regret. It's definitely a bad feeling, but I'm not sure if it's of regret, so I'm going to keep that one as a magic maybe. And then a sense of awe. No, it's not really being awe, or it's not something that they're like, wow, it's a black bog of dread. So let's take a look at the answers we have. We're only allowed to pick 2. Among these 3, fear, being stuck, and regret is the least strong, so I'm actually going to undo that. And the best answer choice is being fear, a feeling of fear, and being stuck. Okay, those are the best ones. Okay, we're going to take a look. 3 and 4 are sort of the same question. One of them is just short response. So I'm going to scroll down to this part because this is where you would actually write it. So the question is, use information from your chart to explain what the narrator's use of the phrase tame as a cow back home tells you about both the moose and the narrator. So I need to go back to the text and see how they talked about tame as a cow back home to see what they were trying to tell me about the moose and the narrator. So first I need to figure out what they were even saying. So they said as tame as a cow back home, right? Tame as a cow back home. And this is a simile. It compares the moose to a tame cow back home. The back home tells me that the narrator probably lives somewhere with cows and that they probably are more comfortable with animals, and that's why it felt comfortable with the moose. So the moose is calm and gentle, right? Because it's tame as a cow. And this is a simile because it says the word as, right? As a cow. So now we're going to put it all together and just sort of merge that into one answer. So use the information from your chart, this is my chart, to explain what the author's use of the phrase tame as a cow back home. So the simile tame as a cow back home suggests the narrator is from a place with cows such as a farm or a small town. This makes me think that she might not be used to being near animals, but she's more comfortable in nature than a city dweller is. This simile also expresses how calm and gentle the moose looks, even though Aunt Cheryl points out how dangerous it can be. Because I learned that the moose is calm and gentle, which is kind of deceiving, right? And the narrator is probably comfortable because it says tame as a cow back home. This back home is really what made you think that the narrator is probably comfortable around animals. All right, now it's your turn to practice independently. This is your assignment for the week. So you're going to read the story from the first chapter of a novel. Read this little blurb, read the story. You're going to preview the text, closely read, and jot the main idea. And then you're going to answer the 5 questions that follow the passage. So pages 277 through 279, you're going to answer those questions. And of course, you're going to submit them on Google Classroom. Make sure you put in the work, y'all. We are tracking attendance now. And if you want a shout out, then you need to put in the work. Okay? All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your week. And I hope that if you guys have any questions, you feel comfortable enough to reach out. And remember that the author isn't always saying things literally. Okay? The figurative language, it's basically saying that the author is trying to tell you something without telling it to you directly. Okay? So make sure you're looking at what the author is saying and try not to get tricked by the figurative language, okay? Have a good one. Bye.